بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد المعقد السابع عشر the 17th chapter الذئب عن العلم والذود عن حياضه, basically like defending knowledge, defending the deen, right? And this is in all aspects, in terms of nowadays we have bombarding with atheist or secularist belief systems. So it's a duty of every Muslim to defend their religion, especially intellectually, and refuting or rebutting those type of ideologies that are trying to eat away at any type of religion in general. Like there's kind of a battle to take people away from religion. So in general, like the Muslim, he defends religion, the belief in Allah, the belief in God, the freedom to practice your religion. So it's your duty as Muslims, especially living in a society, to stand up intellectually and try to get away or refute these shubuhat, these doubtful things that are being thrown at religion, or people that practice religion in general, and to stand up for Islam. So the Imam, he starts, فإن للعلم حرمة وافرة توجب الانتصار له إذا تؤرد لجنابه بما لا يصلح. So basically saying that ilm, knowledge, like we said, most important, the Quran and Sunnah, they have a hurma, or like a sanctity to it, right? That's befitting for every believer to give victory or aid to this knowledge, to protect it. And if it comes, something that's coming to it that's not befitting for it, like, when people attack Islam or say lies about Islam, then it's the duty of the Muslim to defend that and to refute those lies. وقد ظهر هذا الانتصار عند أهل العلم في مظاهر منها. And this type of intisar, which means like giving aid or helping hand to the Islam or to the religion or to the deen or to the ilm, has appeared in different forms. The first one, he says, الرد على المخالف, which is refuting the one who goes against religion, basically, or against the ilm. And like I said, this applies in general, to the society we live in, refuting those type of claims that are anti-religion or anti-Islam, coming up with proofs and giving proper dawah, proper etiquette with proper knowledge, calling to the deen. So the first thing is refuting those who are trying to go against the religion in general, or go against knowledge in general. The second, فمن استبانت مخالفته للشريعة رد عليه كائن من كان حمية للدين ونصيحة للمسلمين. So if somebody comes to oppose the religion or to oppose knowledge, true knowledge, then it is, or go against the Sharia, the Islamic law, it's befitting or obligatory upon whatever the situation you may be in, to kind of defend your religion, defend your defend this deen, and call the people to the right way in the best manner, And this is from protecting the deen and from giving nasiha to the Muslimin. The deen of nasiha. The Prophet ﷺ said that religion is sincerity or advice to the Muslims. So protecting the deen, standing up for the deen, refuting the shubuhat, the doubtful matters, and calling people to the righteousness. This is a form of defending the nasiha to the Muslims in general, and even to the non-Muslims, because it's our duty living in a non-Muslim society to be the best representative of Islam. We have this great treasure, and we should teach others about it. So in doing, protecting the deen, we're also teaching the people how we respect our deen, and we don't play around with it, and that we love our deen and we're sincere for our deen. And this is why some people become interested in Islam, because they see the high respect we have for our books, for our scholars, for our religion. Sometimes non-Muslims, like I went to Catholic school for some time, they don't have that haiba for the Bible. It's like any other book to them. They're just they're not really respectful, which is unfortunate. But a Muslim, even for the Bibles, we're very respectful, because it has some good advice in it, and especially for our book, the Quran. So this is from the Nasiha lil Muslimin. ولم يزل الناس يرد بعضهم على بعض كما قال الإمام أحمد لكن المرشح لذلك هم العلماء لا الدهماء مع لزوم الأدب وترك الجور والظلم. And he's saying that the people will continue to refute and defend our religion, and however, this is encouraged for the ulama, the scholars, the one who have knowledge of the deen, not the duhama. The duhama are the ones that are like awam, the laymen, the one that doesn't have knowledge. So when you're going to refute something, it has to be based upon knowledge. It's not for anybody to come up and say whatever they want. Unfortunately, like one of the signs of the times is that people, especially the younger generation, that have no knowledge whatsoever, you see them trying to like refute people with knowledge, or say things that are not backed with knowledge. A person that's studied maybe less than a year, read a couple books, maybe watched some videos on YouTube, and you see them debating with people that have studied for 20 years, or people that have sat with scholars and stuff like that. This is not from the etiquette, and this is not from the proper way of knowledge. And they have to build themselves up to refute, first of all, or else they won't do a good job. So he's saying this is the job of the ulama, the scholars, not the lay person. مع لزوم الأدب وترك الجور والظلم. With when you're giving nasiha, when you're trying to refute the wrong, you do it with proper etiquette, kindness, and not use, harshness or dhulm, injustice. ادعو إلى الله بالتي هي أحسن. Call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the best of speech. So this is the first category, refuting those who reject Islam or try to like put doubtful matters in Islam, from the non-Muslims and the Muslims themselves, right? The second category when he mentions ومنها هجر المبتدع المجمع عليه كما ذكره أبو يعلى الفراء فلا يؤخذ العلم عن أهل البدعة لكن إذا اضطر إليه فلا بأس كما في رواية عنهم لدى المحدثين. So he says, and from this also is basically like turning away from, some people translate as boycotting those of deviation, the deviation that all the scholars of the Sunnah are agreed upon. If you see a person who is calling to something deviant in the religion, calling away from the true, Islam, then it's obligatory not to sit with that person or take from that person in general. And this is the way of the Salaf in general, right? But Abu Ya'la al-Farra, he says, like, لا يأخذ العلم عن أهل البدع لكن إذا اضطر إليه فلا بأس. So you don't take the knowledge from the people of deviation, but if you are forced to do so, like for example, a person has a deviation and he's a proficient or an expert in a certain field. So the scholars of the past say that if you don't find another expert that's proficient like him, you can take from him in that field specifically, right? And this is proven by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim and others. They've narrated upon like the Khawarij and the Shia, certain ahadith, certain narrations. So in certain circumstances it's permissible, but in general, like the person Ahl Sunnah, we're supposed to stay away from the people that call to deviation or something other than the Prophet ﷺ called to, and if you have the proper knowledge, to try to correct that in the best manner. وفي ذلك يقول الشيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله مقررا أصلا كبيرا تعظم الحاجة إليه في أزمنة الجاهلية والفتن فإذا تعذر إقامة الواجبات من العلم والجهاد وغير ذلك إلا بمن فيه بدعة مضرتها دون مضرة ذلك الواجب كان تحصيل المصلحة واجب مع مفسدة مرجوحة خيرا من العكس. It's a long and complicated issue, but to summarize it, basically Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he says that if you see a person who is upon deviation, but he is striving for the deen, for example, defending Islam against non-Muslims, or if he is like bringing about a type of knowledge that is others are not doing the same job that's needed, then to take from him or to help him is the lesser of two evils. For example, so you have somebody calling to Islam, doing good for the most part, but he has some mistakes in deviation, right? And the alternative is not calling to Islam or not helping the Muslims, or not spreading certain knowledge that's needed amongst the Muslims. So which one do you pick? What is better? Obviously, the first choice. Because they said the Imam, the principle is that you pick the lesser of two evils, or you pick the greater of two goods. That's what the Muslim does in general. So if you have a situation where you're faced with trying to choose between two evils, one is greater than the other, you pick the lesser of the two evils. Or if you're faced with a situation where there's two goods, one is greater than the other, you pick the greater good. That's just the general minhaj that Ibn Taymiyyah is talking about right here. So he's saying it applies to the people of deviation as well, in terms of spreading certain beneficial knowledge, or helping to give izzah or nasr to the ummah. ومنها زجر المتعلم إذا تعدى في بحثه أو ظهر منه لدد أو سوء أدب. Also from this, in defending knowledge, is basically like scorning the student who is not showing proper etiquette in the majlis of ilm. He's saying if he shows, a proper improper behavior, improper etiquette, it's befitting for the teacher to give some type of scorn or like a little bit of harshness to that student because he's not respecting the knowledge as he should be respecting it, right? So in this case, he said this is another way of defending the knowledge, not letting it be disrespected in front of you. He says, كان عبد الرحمن ابن مهدي إن تحدث أحد في مجلسه أو بري قدم صاح ولبس نعليه ودخل وكان وكيع إذا أنكر من أمر جلسائه شيء أن تعلى ودخل. So Imam Mahdi, rahimahullah, he's one of the great scholars of hadith. If one of his students was to speak in his class or like sharpen the pencils during the lesson itself, he would just get up, put his shoes on and leave. Like in the middle of a dars, you can imagine teacher's teaching, he sees something, just like a little person talking on the side or sharpening his pencil, he'll stop teaching, put on his sandals and just walk out. That's how you do it. And then he says, Imam Waqi', the same thing, if he sees something he dislikes among his students, he would stop teaching, put on his shoes and also leave. وشهد هذا مرالا من شيوخنا محمد ابن إبراهيم الشيخ فكم مرة رؤيا منصرفا لما سمع طالبا يتشدق في مقاله فأخذ نعليه وانصرف. So he's saying that one of his teachers he was one of the great scholars in the Arabian Peninsula, who was like teacher of Sheikh ibn Baz and Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen and others, right? He said that he witnessed this himself, that Sheikh Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Sheikh, he many times if he saw a student like not paying attention properly or talking or raising his voice improperly, he would just put on his shoes and walk away, not complete his dars. This is out of respecting and protecting the knowledge. Like if you're teaching knowledge, you're not gonna allow for it to be disrespected in front of you, right? If the person doesn't have the proper etiquette to respect what you're teaching, if you're teaching the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, the ayat, the hadith, the fiqh, the stuff that ulama have spent their lives and sacrificed their lives to give to us, if you're not going to give proper respect to it, then we should just, stop the lesson and leave, because I'm not going to let the ilm be disrespected in front of me. That's the point the Shaykh is making.
What was the last point? As you mentioned that he would leave because of what the...
So if you heard a student like speaking out of proper point or raising his voice or not showing the proper etiquette, yeah. Well, yeah.
Do people do that nowadays?
I mean, sometimes, especially like here in the West, unfortunately, it's kind of a widespread thing that, we don't have that haiba or that sanctity of ilm as much as we used to. So, it's normal for people to talk in class, especially if it's like a bigger environment, bigger class where they can get away from it, to whisper each other, talk to each other, go on the iPhone or the cell phone, whatever, do stuff like that. So it's common, unfortunately. Like even in our classes when we take in the university, we're taught like it's not that big a deal. Even though the teachers, we're supposed to respect any teacher that's teaching us something and give them a proper intention. But unfortunately, now we're taught like it's just, it's just become normalized with us. So we try, inshallah, in our efforts to respect the knowledge and like force ourselves to pay attention. It's just, that short time and you're in a form of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like seeking knowledge with a proper intention is a form of ibadah. Just like in salat, you try your best to focus on salat to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should, as we're seeking knowledge, to do the same, وحضر الشاب مجلس سفيان الثوري فجعل يترأس ويتكلم ويتكبر بالعلم فغضب سفيان وقال لم يكن السلف هكذا لم يكن السلف هكذا. Sufyan al-Thawri, also one of the great scholars of Islam, he was a muhaddith and he could have been like one of the madhahib actually, if he had the proper students to carry on his knowledge. He was at the level of Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Ahmed, and you find many narrations in the books of fiqh upon him giving fatwas. And he was very known for being like so keen on protecting the deen of Islam and encouraging the good and forbidding the evil. It was said, like in some narrations you'll find that if he saw like an evil in front of him and he couldn't correct it or get rid of it, he would actually urinate blood, because he was so like, it burned him so much, subhanAllah. So anyways, he said that in his majlis, when he was having his halaqah and teaching the students, if he saw somebody like, raising his voice or talking out of line or showing off like that, he would stop and get very upset and say that لم يكن السلف هكذا, the Salaf, our predecessors were not like this. Our predecessors were not like this. He would keep repeating it and he would just walk away. كان أحدهم لا يدعي الإمامة ولا يجلس في الصدر حتى يطلب هذا العلم 30 سنة وأنت تتكبر على من هو أسن منك قم عني ولا أراك تدنو من مجلسي. So in this narration he says that the Imam Sufyan al-Thawri saying to the student that you are trying to like show yourself off in this majlis, and people in the past they would not go and teach or speak in front of others until they have sought knowledge for 30 years, right? He would say, and you here sitting here in front of people that are older than you and more knowledgeable than you, and you're trying to speak and show off, please get out of my majlis and don't come back to me. So this is another narration. He would say that to the student that's being like, not having proper etiquette in his majlis. وكان رحمه الله يقول إذا رأيت شاب يتكلم عند المشايخ وإن كان قد بلغ من العلم مبلغا فأيس من خيره فإنه قليل الحياء. He says that if you see a youth speaking in a majlis of shuyukh, so you have like a bunch of scholars or a bunch of people that have a lot of knowledge, and a young man who, even though he says he is very knowledgeable himself, but if you see him speaking above the shuyukh, before they speak, he's saying then realize that you don't like expect good from this person, for he has no shyness. So basically, when you should know your place, and if you have your elders around, who are more knowledgeable, it's always better to give them respect and let them speak first. Sometimes you find the youth that they get a little knowledge and they want to show off their knowledge and they always want to speak. So he's saying this is something that's not encouraged. In Islam, the people, they put in work to get to that level of scholarship. They spent their whole life studying it. So out of that respect for their age and for their knowledge, you should like always give them the priority in speaking. وإن احتاج المعلم إلى إخراج المتعلم من مجلسه زجرا له فليفعل كما فعل سفيان وكما كان يفعله شعبة رحمه الله مع عفان ibn Muslim في درسه. So he said, and if a teacher sees it befitting to expel a student from his class, then he should do so. Like if a student is not being, proper etiquette in the majlis, and he's not giving the knowledge the due his respect, the teacher should have no problem in kicking him out. He says, as Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah did, and he mentioned also Shu'bah. Shu'bah is also one of the great scholars of hadith and fiqh, and he would do the same thing with his student Affan ibn Muslim. And Affan ibn Muslim, he would kick him out of the majlis if he saw like from him not paying attention, or he's not like, if he's not keen on respecting knowledge. But he became one of his best students, because he would humble himself and ask for forgiveness and like apologize and come back. And he narrated upon him many ahadith, but even with this person who was so close to him and a good student, if he saw that he was not giving the proper etiquette, he would remove him from his class. So this is like we said, the whole point of this chapter is defending the knowledge, respecting the knowledge, holding it dear. So from the way we can defend knowledge, and if a person is not respecting it, then let him, either you leave yourself so you don't put it, to having the ability to do so, or you tell that person to leave. وقد زجر المتعلم بعدم الإقبال عليه وترك إجابته فالسكوت جواب كما قال الأعمش. He said also, like some of the students are basically criticized or expelled from the majlis for not paying attention as well, right? Or not answering the question properly. So if a student, if the teacher, the sheikh, sees the student's not paying attention, or he's not really giving his due proper efforts and understanding, then he can also remove him for that sense. And I remember I used to attend the lectures of Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah in the Haram in Mecca. Every Ramadan and Hajj he would come there, and we would go as students and sit in his majlis, and he would do it like a kind of a fun way, but also to know, especially with his, he wouldn't do it with like strangers, but people he know who are students of knowledge that should know better. So he'll be like giving the lecture, and then he'll stop and he'll call upon one of them and say like, what did I just say, or what's the answer to this? And if the student can't answer, he'll say, okay, stand up. And he'll just like stand up in front of in the haram. There's like thousands and thousands of people around you, and the student's just standing there like really embarrassed, just like standing. And he goes on teaching, and then he comes back to him. He's like, okay, you awake now? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, sit down. Just to give him that encouragement that you should respect, this knowledge. If you're going to sit in the majlis, give the teacher the proper etiquette. ورأينا هذا كثيرا من جماعة من المشيوخ منهم العلامة بن باز رحمه الله ربما سأله سائل عما لا ينفعه فترك الشيخ إجابته وأمر القارئ أن يواصل قراءته أو أجابه بخلاف قصده. Also, he says, like, he's seen this with some of the scholars he's sat under, like Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah. If a student would ask, also he's talking about not having the proper etiquette in asking a question, or asking a question for something that's not related to the lesson, or something that's like, kind of way off base. So he said he would see the Sheikh just ignore the question and continue in the dars, or he would answer the question in a different way that's not like what the questioner really wanted. Because sometimes people, they want to ask questions just to ask a question, like not for really benefit, maybe to cause something controversial or something like that. So the shuyukh, they know better sometimes, so they'll just like either, remain silent and not answer, or they just continue on in the dars, And it's also from the adab sometimes, like, you don't correct the shaykh like in his lesson, So I remember I learned this myself when I was a young student in Medina, in Jama'ah Islamiyah. One of the shuyukh, now he was younger then, mashallah, and now he's elder and he's respected as like one of the, big scholars, mashallah. But at the time, he had said something which was maybe like not correct, but I was not like doing the proper etiquette. So I kind of like, raised my head and I said, well, isn't, such and such and such and such. And he just like was just silent. And I was just sitting there like, and I got the point though. I was like, subhanAllah, maybe I made a mistake. Like, it was not proper etiquette to do that. But I learned my lesson, and after that, like I never did that again, alhamdulillah. So, sometimes, and he said, like, for, there's a story of Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah. He was asked a question. He said, is Juj and Ma'juj, are they Muslims? Gog and Magog. And then Imam Ahmed got very upset with the student and said, have you learned إذا هل أحكمت كل العلم حتى تسألني عن ذلك? Like, have you mastered all the different knowledges so you can ask me this question? Like, what a foolish question. Why are you bothering? Like, who cares? Is it like pertaining to your life right now? Is it going to help you? Did you master all the different sciences in Islam? No. So work on what's like pertinent and what's most important first, and then you can ask like questions like that maybe in the far future. But what color was the dog of the people of the cave, or what's like like there's all strange questions sometimes. Like, subhanAllah, it's not going to benefit you in your deen. So ask what's most beneficial and pertinent to the lesson that you're studying at hand. So this is the general lesson, basically defending the knowledge first, against those who go against the Sharia, or who call against Islam, or insult Islam, who insult the Prophet ﷺ, who insult God, insult Allah. It's our duty as Muslims to defend that. In terms of, what we have here is obviously our speech and our writing. So the Muslims should be encouraged to become academics. They should be encouraged to write. They should be encouraged, to do op-eds, to speak when you can, volunteer. Go to like these different, lectures, or anytime you can have a space where you can talk correctly about Islam and give the right picture, you should do so. And don't let people spread false propaganda or false information about Islam, or try to distort it amongst the people and like associate it with terrorism all the time, or backwardness. Bring the true history of Islam, how it was it brought the golden age to the whole world, basically, in science and math and all these different types of sociology and history and everything. And then the next category was the people of deviation, how to deal with them, in general, and to correct their deviation if possible, to avoid it if you can't, and if there's certain knowledge that are necessary that we are allowed to take with them and work with them. And then the third category was in the majlis itself, with the knowledge, don't allow a student to be disrespectful to the class, to the knowledge you're teaching. Either you stop teaching or he gets removed from the class. That's a summary of this lesson, alhamdulillah. And if you guys have any questions or advice or nasiha, jazakumullah khairan.
I have a question, but it's not. So, how will the people who did not receive the message, how will they be judged?
So there's some narrations that say they will be given a test on the Day of Judgment, and if they obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or obey the test, they will enter into Jannah, and if they disobey, they will enter into the fire. Yeah.
Okay.
So the ones that never received the message properly in this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's all just and all merciful. So He would never put a person, into the fire without giving him the proper chance to accept Islam or not. So therefore, if he'd never received the message, they call him like Ahl Fatra. For example, they lived in a period between two prophets, or they lived in some remote area where no messages came to them, or all they heard was like the wrong information about Islam, for example. Then they will be given, a test on the Day of Judgment, and if they pass the test, Allah will let them into paradise, and if they fail the test, then the other place. There's different narrations. There's some that say like a messenger will be sent to them. And if they accept the messenger, what the message was. Some say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will come to them in a certain manner. So there's different ahadith, but the general gist is basically they will be given a chance on the Yawm al-Qiyamah to accept or deny.
Don't you think everybody would accept if they're...
No, I mean, Allahu A'lam, I don't know. They're not gonna know. So, like for example, even when the Dajjal comes, the Antichrist, he will be given tests to people, saying like, if you enter into this Jannah, you'll be in, you'll go straight to Jannah, and if you enter into this fire, if you believe in me, enter Jannah, you go to Jannah. If you disbelieve in me, I'll put you in the fire and you go to hell. So it looks like Jannah in front of you. So even though we're warned about the Dajjal, but some people will forget, or some people will be so tempted, and they'll go and it'll be hellfire for them if they go into the Jannah. And the Muslim will be like, I know you're the Dajjal, and he'll be thrown into the fire, but it becomes a Jannah for him. So sometimes it's like we see it theoretically, but when it comes down to it, the fitness is very strong, or the test might be very difficult. Even now, like in a dunya, subhanAllah, I mean in the Quran, when you read it, those people in the hellfire will ask to be returned to the earth so that they can do some type of good and believe. But Allah says, like, even if they were to go back, they would still disbelieve, subhanAllah, even after being in hell and all that stuff. Yeah. So some of the people in hellfire will ask, like, if they would have another chance to go back to the dunya, and do good, so they can get out of the hellfire. But even if they were to go back and into the dunya, they will still become disbelievers, even after that. Yeah. I mean, look at the Prophet's family. They knew him as Sadiq al-Amin, the most truthful. He never lied in his life. The best character, the most noble family, the most kind, the most generous, all the best characteristics, and then they rejected him, SubhanAllah. So sometimes the shaitan, like the fitna of the dunya and the world, is stronger for the person, Yeah. So that's why I always ask Allah to keep your hearts firm upon Islam and not to give us a test that we cannot bear, جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.